Tuesday morning, May the 31st, 2022. I've been wanting to comment for a while and have been actually writing and rewriting drafts of what I think I want to say and what I'm actually going to read, hopefully relatively quickly to try to stay on point. I realize reading isn't the best way to handle this, but at least to get these basic ideas out there, I want to make sure I stay on point, get these ideas out there, and then I'll probably be done. I don't think I'll have much commentary on anything today, and then come back later to talk about different topics in light of the basic issue that I'm raising today. As I've entitled it, Representative Democracy and Legislative Action. I want to think for a little bit about how we are currently uh, divided as a nation and how we act in spite of our relatively close division, as if we have super majorities every time we come to the conclusion of an election. So America is nearly evenly split on many issues deemed vitally, even fundamentally important to how life ought to be lived. These hot button issues form part of the larger package of policies and inclinations that are generally represented by one of the two major political parties which dominate American politics. Every couple of years, Americans choose representatives of the platforms of these two parties in a process which offers little room for nuance regarding these issues. Our representative democracy is challenged, however, by advocates from both parties who insist that razor-thin victories be interpreted as the national mandate to instantiate in law their positions on particularly divisive issues. We are now in a situation where each party seems to have accepted as a modus operandi that a victory of any margin is to be followed by large-scale implementation of what are often viewed by a majority of the country as extreme positions. As a result, we are whipsawed from election to election by action and counteraction, all done in the name of the will of the American people, the majority of whom seem to be trying to avoid too much of what either party has to offer. A contributing factor to our tendency to legislate from the extremes may be that we have forgotten the implications of some of the principles that lay behind America's founding. Principles such as individual liberty, individual responsibility, the possibility of failure as well as success, and majority rule at the lowest level of governance possible. The inculcation of the ideals of Enlightenment thinking, as represented in America's founding, are centered on individual liberty in a context that brought together individuals and communities which had many disagreements, but who chose to unite around general principles rather than stay divided over particular policies. Security for these and other principles is sought under the umbrella of a national government charged with preserving these ideals and ensuring protection for individuals whose views vary from the majority. For a nation founded on principles, the challenge is to determine if such a foundation is stable and worth the sacrifice. It is much easier to establish a nation based on family ties or territory or ethnicity or religious faith or any of the reasons by which people have organized in the past, and the temptation is to slide towards one of these more clear organizing principles. Even as like-minded people from anywhere on earth have been welcome to join the discussion and the effort to build a more perfect union centered on allowing the greatest possible individual liberty in the context of majority rule, forces have been at work to limit how that vision might take shape. But as an individual cannot live at peace when living contrary to his or her basic beliefs, neither can a nation continue in peace when it seeks to entertain institutions and polities which fundamentally flaunt the principles on which it was founded. Agreeing to disagree over policies and many principles lay at the foundation of establishing a society in which individual liberty could flourish. The freedom to associate with communities which reflect individual preferences is balanced by the freedom to discuss openly differences of opinion and the reasons for those differences. The result is, or can be, an opportunity for better understanding and relationships between those with differing opinions, rather than a perpetual sense of mistrust of the other. A society committed to both majority rule and individual liberty offers a chance for individuals to find or establish communities in which they are free to live as they see fit, while also ensuring that communities are not tyrannized by minority opinions. The strength of such an arrangement is realized in a context in which individuals are willing to work together at different levels of engagement for a common good, despite differences of opinion on issues considered fundamental at an individual level. One of our greatest strengths as a nation is a willingness, enshrined in the Constitution, to allow free-ranging discussions on every issue in the broader context of the social fabric, which allows individuals and communities with different opinions to work together towards certain, perhaps limited, common goods. The strength of such an arrangement is, however, dependent on recognizing the proper sphere in which social and legal expectations should be applied on any given topic. 50 years ago, one of the common refrains when someone raised a ruckus about something was, "There's no need to make a federal case out of this." Now, every effort is made to make a federal case out of every grievance that comes up. For some, agreeing to disagree over some key issues seems like an abandonment of principles which cannot be abandoned under any circumstance. But do the principles on which America was founded challenge us to consider what exactly is at stake when we elevate our grievances to the next level of authority? If we truly value principles such as individual liberty, and if we believe that individuals should be free to make choices based on what they believe is the best decision given all of the options, then are we at risk of destroying the potential of American idealism if we insist on uniformity of belief and action at too high a level of governance? A common theme running through the current discourse is that we are becoming increasingly polarized in our efforts to claim legislative superiority over issues about which we are either evenly divided or which directly impact only a small minority of our population. Perhaps, though, the risk is not polarization, but an inability to talk about issues from our polarized positions. Loss of communication means we run the risk of incurring either the cost of another civil war over issues which may not be worth, as was the first one, such a high price, or the loss of liberty to a tyrannical system which will claim to be operating in our best interest as it subverts the very ideals on which our nation and liberties depend. Everything is not equally important. Everything important is not best adjudicated at the highest possible level. Choosing what to fight for and how to fight is not always easy, but it is a choice that we should make. Insisting that every issue is a federal issue to be adjudicated by the Supreme Court may lead either to the chaos and destruction of a civil war or open the door to tyrannical rule as a response to perceived or persistent chaos. As we enter the stretch run of another election cycle, we would do well to keep in mind that we are voting not only for our preferences regarding the many different and often fundamental issues over which we disagree. We are also voting for how such disagreements should be handled during both our ongoing debates and subsequent governance. What principles are at stake as we argue for and seek to govern with respect to the issues which drive our debate and threaten to drive us apart? How does our governance reflect not only what we believe is right, but what we believe is right in the context of being the United States of America, as envisioned by those who prioritize the ideals of individual liberty and justice for all? For all those who claim that the positions they hold are worth dying for, are worth splitting the country apart, etc., etc., it seems like it would be good for all of us to reflect for a bit on the history of human beings' efforts to organize and the history of failure, for the most part, in organizing to the benefit of the majority rather than a select few. And consider if, in fact, the things that we disagree on are really so fundamentally important that we shouldn't first try to think about why we have so much to try to stay together and work together to realize the full potential that was envisioned in the idealism of the founding of America. An idealism that wasn't reflected at the founding, an idealism that is only imperfectly reflected now, but that we can all choose to work together as we come to discuss our different ideas and opinions on what ought to be. We can all work together to realize that ideal in a more perfect way so that future generations can continue to the discussion and continue to improve on what we have done. Thank you all very much. Look forward to hearing what you have to say. Thank you.